All right, here we are at the Jim Crow era. Can somebody tell us what that is?
Okay, so the Jim Crow era was a time when black people were most discriminated against, and they were prevented from owning houses, and they were racially oppressed by white Americans.
All right, so what artifacts do you have to teach us about the Jim Crow era?
One of the artifacts is the Negro Murderers Green Book. And so with the Jim Crow era, it was like primarily about separation. And so during this time, black people didn't know which areas were safe for them. So Victor Hugo Green created a guidebook for travelers to figure out a list of places they could and couldn't go.
All right, I think there's a movie about that.
It is.
I'd give it a good review. It's a good movie. All right, what other things do you have?
I have a sign that represents many of the signs that were around in the Jim Crow era that segregated colored and whites in public areas, and they were pretty much everywhere. Like you couldn't go anywhere and not see a sign that separated you from someone else or someone of color. And this is one of many examples of racial discrimination in the Jim Crow era. And even though these signs are not out today, like they're not directly on public areas, there are still effects of the Jim Crow era today and discrimination.
This is a protest poster from the Jim Crow era, and at the time there were many protests against racism with hope to advance the civil rights movement, and many people were against the Jim Crow and wanted to voice their opinion. And since most of the civil rights movement is nonviolent, then this poster represents their voice.
Here's my artifact. It says, "We want white tenants in our white community." In 1942, an unwelcoming sign was placed outside of a housing project for African Americans in Detroit, Michigan, as an attempt to prevent black tenants from moving in. During Jim Crow, black Americans faced exclusion and discrimination from white Americans in residential areas. Jim Crow laws also restricted African Americans and other non-white races from owning their own property. These circumstances caused African Americans to have to live in lower income ghettos and ultimately having to face lower property value than white Americans. Even today, when black Americans purchase homes, their property value is around $12,800 less than that of a white person's. Home ownership is also significantly higher for white citizens than black citizens. All of these issues can certainly date back to the residential discrimination of Jim Crow laws.
So Jim Crow wasn't just in the South?
Yeah, it was in the North as well.
Okay, discrimination present in the North too. All right. And then who are all these people?
Important people that helped do things in the Jim Crow era, like Ida B. Wells. She was discriminated against herself, and so she wanted to make an effort to stop lynching, and she made a newspaper, co-owned a newspaper. And
Isaiah Montgomery, he founded the Mound Bayou, which was a town that empowered black citizens.
All right. Good job, guys.